What's up, everybody? My name is Alex. This is my channel, OnlyFins. Today we're going to be talking about the disassembly of the 850 BioMaster Thermo canister filter for your aquarium. This unit is the only unit that I'm running right now currently in all my tanks. We don't have any other units that we're utilizing, and part of that is because some of the other units that we've had in the past have failed. We'll go into those units and what happened with them and why they failed. However, this is the main unit that we're running right now on all 4 of our tanks that we have. This is the biggest unit that OASE makes in the canister filter series. This is the 850, like I said. This one is rated for 225 gallons. I am not running it on that big of tanks. I'm actually running it on much smaller tanks, which is a good thing because it just gives you supreme filtration. You know, overfiltration is always a good thing for your fish. And so this is just the maximum amount of filtration available from OASE for a canister, which is really nice. I like that it's taller, not wide and round like some of the other units. This is really, it can fit in most cupboards. The tanks that you'll see later, they are a PetSmart unit, the stand that they sit on, and these fit just fine in that stand, no problem. So, like I said, today we're going to be disassembling it. I'm going to be showing you some pieces and why I really like this filter, and why I have 5 of them on 4 tanks. So to start with, OASE does something really cool here. This unit right here, this is where obviously the hoses go, right? And it would normally be in a position like this facing forward. Now, I can't undo the pre-filter with this side closed. I actually have to open this one first. So OASE does a really good job of kind of engineering the steps you need to do, straightforward. So it's kind of, foolproof, right? This one is locked mechanically by this one right here until it goes to the unlock position, and then I can move this one. So step number 1 would be you take the hoses off, obviously, at the tank. I don't have those right here. They're at the tank, right? So undo those like that, and then the next step is like this. Now this is the pre-filter assembly right here. It's got a lot of water in it. I'm going to empty this out real quick over here in the sink. Make sure that gets emptied. And we'll go through some of the pieces later as we do this as well. But right now I'm going to disassemble the unit. So step number 1 that I do, I did leave this as a full unit to demonstrate. So I took that pre-filter out, right? And the reason why I do that is you lift this up and then you can dump it out just like this. Make sure that all the water gets out. And you'll see later why I'm doing this right now, the way that I'm doing it. All right, so that allows a nice big hole for the 2.5 gallons of water, thereabouts, that this filter holds to come out really, really quickly, making it lighter and easier to disassemble. So the next step, we're going to lift the handle up here. I'm going to pull the heater out, lift it up and out. Now, this is a Heat Up 400. This is what makes it the thermo unit, is that it's got a built-in heater. It's one of the main reasons I went with this filter, is because it's got the heater built in. So you don't have to have it in the tank. You don't have to have it in plumbing. You don't have to have it in anything else. It's in the canister. It doesn't take up any more room, and it's wonderful. Yes, this is a really big unit. This is a 400-watt unit. But with heaters, it's kind of nice to have an oversized unit versus a smaller unit, because this will work much more efficiently to heat up water. It's not trying as hard. So these are rated for, however many gallons, right? Doesn't say on the back here, but these are rated for a lot of gallons. But like I said, I'm running them in my 75s and my 150, which has 2 OASEs on it, both with heaters. And it just makes it a lot more efficient at keeping the water hot or the correct temperature, because look at the surface area. It doesn't have to work as hard. So that's why I like going oversized on everything, right? Keeps it nice and easy. Okay, next step, you pull these handles. Now, once again, OASE does a really good job thinking through things, so I like this company. If this is down, these cannot be opened. And the reason why is the handle actually has a lever right here that pushes down on these, preventing them from coming up. So once again, just really nice features that OASE's thought of. Pop these 2 off like this. Lift it up and out, and that's the motor head assembly right there. We'll disassemble that over by the sink here in a little bit. And you can see on all my cords, I have some cord ties and everything just to keep everything nice and organized. I have some labels right here, tell us what they are when I go to plug them in on the heater as well. So there's only 2 cords, the pump and the heater right here. Okay, now the next step is to start pulling out the baskets. And this is why I really like this filter. Look how many baskets this thing has. This one's a little tiny sponge up at the top. They tried to take up the maximum amount of room. This is my chemical basket right here. And then I have 1, 2, 3 sponge filters right there. Real nice, real big and thick, and they're the whole basket. I'll take these apart over here by the sink. And then as I customize this a little bit, I have 1 and I have 2, it's a little slimy, 2 biomedia baskets in here. And right now what I'm running are these API BioStars is what they were called, API BioStars. You can find these on Amazon is where I found them. They're sometimes out of stock, but usually that's where they're available. And then the rest is CChem Matrix, the smaller stuff. Now, what I don't like is that the CChem Matrix on these baskets, as you can see on the bottom, have quite big holes. And that matrix can sometimes work its way out through the bottom. Now, they do make a pond matrix, which is much bigger. I thought about running it, but according to CChem's website, this has better bacteria yield. Who knows if that's true? I think in the future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the API stars out and just run matrix. And I think I'm going to get some bags from CChem, the bag or whatever they call it, and just run it in that to prevent them from going anywhere. But as you can see, this is a quite filled up matrix basket here of biomedia and stuff, and there's 2 of them. So that's what we really like. So what I usually do to start cleaning is I come over to the sink, take some hot water, clean this out. Try to get everything as clean as I possibly can inside there. Now, here's where everybody's going to lose their mind because I know you're not supposed to rinse these out, but I do. And the reason why I do is just to try to get all the stuff out of the bottom because they're on the bottom, right? So when they're on the bottom, they're going to pick up a lot of stuff. Everybody's like, oh, you're not supposed to rinse it in sink water. Well, guess what? Here we go. Supposedly that'll kill all your bacteria. I've never had a problem. And the reason I've read and seen online why that's a thing is because supposedly the water has chlorine in it, depending on where you are, and that chlorine will kill your bacteria, dead instantaneously, supposedly. I know my water doesn't have a lot of chlorine. In fact, we have some special filters I've installed in the house just to double make sure that we don't have a chlorine problem. Our water softener has a filter in it that actually filters out a lot of the chlorine. So everybody's going to freak out because like, oh, don't clean your biomedia. You're supposed to do it in aquarium water. Yeah, I don't do that. I haven't done that since the day I started. But keep in mind too, though, that I also have tanks that have been running now for years. So the tanks are fine. They have tons of bacteria in the tanks, on all the stuff, in the gravel, substrate, whatever's in the tank, right? So these aren't the main source of bacteria. That's why I can clean them and get the sludge out of them and get, all the hard stuff out. When I go over to the sink, can you see me okay? Is it good? All right. Worry that you can't see me when I go over to the sink. Okay. So these baskets are really nice, and I'll take these apart real quick. Because, once again, OASE does a really good job thinking through things. These baskets just go together like that. That's it. Now, plastic, water does not like plastic, and plastic does not like water. The only problem I've had with some of these baskets is they do start to, I'll say, deform. And I've had to replace a few just because this outer edge right here is what tends to not want to mate up against the other surface. And the basket gets a little tricky to put on. So, get a new basket, whatever, but that's fine. So here's our biomedia. We're going to stick this in. And then in the bottom of this filter, OASE actually has, because you got to think about what's going on, right? So this right here on the bottom, because there's this tube that goes in like this, that's in the bottom right here. So the baskets can only go in one way. which is really nice because some filters, they can go in backwards, forward, sideways. You don't know if you did it right till you're done. You fire it up and it's wrong. That's horrible. We don't like that idea. So OASE does a really good job of engineering it to only kind of fit one way, so that way you can't really mess it up. I mean, you can, but they try to prevent that. That's the going theory. So I'll move the canister over here real quick. We're going to rinse out some of our sponges. Now, with the sponges, everything OASE does is serviceable. So you can buy sponges, you can buy the baskets, you can buy the heater. Oh, one other really cool thing about this filter, this canister, is let's say you don't find the thermo unit. Sometimes the thermo unit is not available. That's okay. You can buy the heat up, which is their, OASE's version of a heater, and it will come, this will come with an adapter right here where you can actually install this. This goes on and off. If I was to push this down, it's just a rubber seal on the inside that this just goes on like a sleeve, and then all of a sudden this becomes a BioMaster Thermo. So if you're wondering what the difference between the thermo and the non-thermo version is, it's the heater. The non-thermo doesn't come with the heater, the thermo does. But if you can't find it, you can make it a thermo very easily. In fact, if I want to make this a non-thermo, I can do the reverse too, which is I take it out on the motor head, and OASE provides you in the box a plug, essentially. So you don't, once again, you don't have to go buy a lot of different accessories. OASE kind of makes it to where you can do whatever you want. So with the sponges, once again, I hear this all the time, we're not supposed to rinse them out with sink water because, oh no, it's bad and you'll kill your bacteria and all of that. Well, guess what? Nobody cares. You can rotate it a little bit actually if you want. So what we're gonna do, just rotate the stand. Just rotate the stand. The whole stand. That way it gets more better on the camera. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna rinse them off. Now once again, everybody's like, don't do this, you're gonna kill your bacteria. There's chlorine in the water, oh no. I've done this so many times that I've never had a problem, and I never get ammonia spikes or anything else. But the real reason I do this in the sink, and I just rinse them out like that, this one's fairly clean, is because a lot of these, because of the types of fish I have, which we'll see later, they like to kick up sand. So I'm not really doing this to get like the bacteria and stuff off. I'm doing it to get the sand and the substrate out. Because like in the other tank that we have, Asia, we have 2 eels, and the eels like to kick up the sand and the substrate. So when I go to clean these out, 90% of what comes out is sand. It's not even, bacteria or sludge or anything. It's literally sand. And you can see, maybe it's still a little too far away from the camera, but as I try to clean this one, you can see what's running off, if you can. It's mostly sand. And that's why I just give these a rinse. Is try to get the sand out, make sure the pump head is not working too hard, and make sure that it's functional. So, like I said, I like to give those just a quick rinse. And these are actually fairly new, at least the 2 of them, because they're not very dirty, which is a good thing. So that one only needs a little bit. Now, how do you know when to replace your sponges? I've heard a lot of people, oh, you don't ever have to replace sponges, they're good forever. Some people replace them on a schedule. What I do is I do these by weight, essentially. And what I mean by that is when I can't squeeze stuff out of them anymore and they feel extremely, extremely heavy. So you can see this one's a newer one. This one's an older one, a little bit difference in color there. And this one's been in for a lot longer because of the bacteria and everything, right? And this one's obviously newer. Well, the thing about the newer ones is they're much lighter. You can feel the weight difference, right? And so if you can feel that weight difference, then that's how you know when it's time to replace them, is because they'll get heavy, you can't get stuff out, they're not clean. So I like to rinse the baskets off, make sure we get all the crap out of them. Go ahead like this, just rinse it off, and you can see I'm using fairly hot water. Just try to get them, not spotless, but just get all the stuff, the sand, probably a lot of other things off there too. Rinse it off like this. I know I can just hear some people going, oh my God, he's rinsing it and He's not doing it in aquarium water, and he's not doing it in clean water. And okay, that water, they live in it. And so if the fish can live in it, and I'm going to put more bacteria in anyway, it's fine. As long as you don't do like a huge water change and the filters on the same day, you're not going to have a problem, because the bacteria is everywhere in the tank. It's on all the equipment. It's not only in the filter. It's on everything. That's why it's called an established aquarium. Okay, so we put these back in like this. These all just go in nice and easy. I like to kind of pre-build it, make sure all the baskets look good, make sure they're stacking real nice, like this. So see, 3 sponges. Now, OASE actually, I believe, wants 4 sponges in there and only 1 biobasket. Like I said, I kind of customized it. I wanted more biomedia filtration, especially the matrix and the API stars, which was nice. Okay, so now for chemical filtration. Can we see this okay? Can we see this? Pretty good. Do we need to zoom in a little bit maybe? Get closer? No? Okay. These are Seachem Purigens. This is an old Purigen. I will show you what a new Purigen looks like. Here's a bag of Purigen right now. I'm going to cut this bad boy open. And you can see there's a lot of stuff that comes off of this. So what I do, take it over here to the sink real quick, give it a rinse. Try to get all the white stuff out. Now, if you don't do that, it will get in your tank. It's not a big deal. It just makes it cloudy for a little while. So this is new Purigen, and this is old Purigen. And you can see the difference, how it starts to go brown a little bit, right? Now, Purigen you can regen. And I know some people like Chemi Blue and some of the other ones. They're all kind of the same. They're the synthetic, filter resins. I just like Seachem stuff. I think Seachem stuff is the best. These ones are the 100 milliliter bags. So they're already in like an enclosed bag. Smells funny. Won't tell you what I really think it smells like. It smells like tuna. But this one says it treats up to 100 gallons. Now, what's weird about specifications on fish stuff is it says up to 100 gallons, but that doesn't tell you, like, based on bioload, based on whatever, because it literally just says use each bag for 100 US gallons, right? So what does that mean? What if I have 1 fish? What if I have 900 fish? Like, it doesn't really tell you. It just says only for 100 gallons, right? So we know it's high capacity. So what I do, depending on my tank and depending on what the fish I have in there, which once again we'll show the tanks later, but most of my tanks are overstocked, or most of my tanks have really big fish in them. That's why I put multiple in there. So I have 3 Purigens, so that's 300 milliliters total quantity in there, and you can see it's pretty brown. Now what I do is I have a bucket, and I throw it in the bucket. Those are all the bad ones right there. Bad ones, these are all the ones that need to be regened. Now what regenning means is you effectively clean out the stuff in the resin, right? It looks like this again. And I'm going to show you. So I have this bucket here. This is just an O'Reilly bucket, really helpful. And it's got a lid that I got from Home Depot for like $3. Nice little lid that screws on here if you want, right? Real nice and fun. But why I do this is I have a separate bucket that's dedicated. These are regened. So you can see, might have to try to get closer. This is brand new. This is regened. And you can see they're almost white. This one's a little bit more yellow. This one's perfectly white. This one's more yellow. But this is regened. And how you regen it is actually with this chemical right here, germicidal bleach. Now, what's interesting about this bleach is this is not the stuff you find at the grocery store. I have to buy that from Staples or Office Max. It's the only place I've been able to find it, except recently I did find it on Amazon cheaper than that. Got it really cheap at Amazon. But Seachem's instructions, if you want to regen it, which are not on this, they're on their website, but you need a certain percentage of bleach. And this one has to be, the sodium hypochlorite has to be 8.25. I believe the stuff at the store is only 7.65 or something like that. It's not as strong. So this being germicidal bleach is what Seachem's recommendation is for regenning. So what the instructions say is 1 part bleach, 1 part water. So what I do is I put 1 part bleach, 1 part water. Usually it's like a cup to a cup, right? Whatever. Hot water, bleach, throw it in this bucket, let it sit for, however long, if I remember. There's one time I let it go for a month because I forgot about it. It's out in the garage because it smells, right? And then basically you pull them out, you rinse them, and then you throw them back in the same bucket. I use water at that point, and then I use API Aqua Essential, which will reverse chlorine and other things and make it safe essentially. And in the instructions for regenning your Purigen, it says do not use a gel based. So I'm pretty sure C-Chem Prime would be okay if I use it. It's not a gel based. What they're talking about is like Stress Coat from API, or Tetra makes a water conditioner that is a gel, and that will gum this up and render it ineffective. So you want something that's pretty much water-based or less thick essentially, or else you will mess up your Purigen. And this stuff is expensive. This stuff, I think in these bags right now, it's like $15 a bag. What I am trying to move towards is where I measure them. And I bought bags from API and some other places, and I'll measure my own quantities. And instead of having 3 bags, I'll just have 1 or whatever size quantity I want, because these are expensive. The only really good part about these though, and I mean the really good part about these, is that they're enclosed and they're in the bag. See? So you can do whatever you want with them. That's the only reason I really like them. That's why I was buying them originally, because some of the bags, Purigen is so fine, to try to find a fine mesh bag like this is a pain in the ass. Sucks. So anyway, so these are my, like I said, I have a dedicated regen bucket that no fish or anything ever will touch, or anything else, that's dedicated for the bleach and the water and everything, and then the chemical to reverse it. So you let those sit for a few days after you put your API Aqua Essential in, or Prime or whatever, to reverse the chlorine, and you can smell when the chlorine is gone, because chlorine bleach really smells, right? And so you can tell when it's regened and it's the chlorine is gone, because it doesn't smell like chlorine anymore. It goes back to smelling like what Purigen smells like. For those of you that have used Purigen, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It has a, let's say, very distinct smell. It's not bad, it's just distinct. Okay, so the other thing we have in here that I'm taking out is Phosbond. This is to take out phosphates and silicate and stuff. I use Phosbond. This you can also buy in bulk and make your own bags. I just was kind of testing it out, so I haven't bought it in bulk yet or my bags yet, but I don't know. I keep monitoring levels in the tanks and stuff, and I can't. Does this do anything? Yeah. Does it help? I'm sure. But it also says it expires in like 3 days. I don't know. I just leave it in the tank. I just leave it in the canister, and I do it. So one of the other things I guess I should talk about is how often I'm doing this. Now, we call it filter day, and my wife hates it because it takes a while, because I have 5 of these, and it takes an awful long time to do, 5 of them. I've got down probably about 2 hours now, but still it takes a long time. And originally what set it off was there was one of the chemicals, or one of the instructions that I read somewhere in something I had done, said you have to check this about every 2-ish months. That's a recommendation. That's just the cycle that mine runs. I have all my tanks monitored pretty well, so I can start to tell when things are getting full just by flow of the filter itself, because it'll slow down a lot when these start to restrict, or if the pre-filter starts to restrict. But you can set yours up, obviously monitor your own tank. I'm sure there are people who do this every week. I don't do that every week. That's stupid. That's a lot of money and materials and whatever. I've also seen, there was a video recently posted where somebody went over a year with like an FX4. I think that's insane. I think you're probably burning your pump motor up at that point, just because the amount of stuff it has to try to push and pull through is really going to burn that pump head motor, at least in my opinion, right? So anyways, let's get back to building it. So we've got our baskets. So remember, I have in the filter right now, I have biomedia at the bottom. We're going to take these and we're going to pop them in. Make sure all the baskets align, which they kind of just tend to fall into place. Maybe give it a good shake. Look down inside there. Yep, they're in. Okay, so now we can start adding our chemical filtration. So like I said, because this filter is so big, this canister is so big, you can really put in kind of anything you want. This is C-Chem's Phosbond. This one is Sechems Fa Bond as well. I might do 2 of them just to see what happens. I've got Purigen. You can put whatever you want essentially in there, but I usually just do Purigen and Fa Bond occasionally. I don't really tend to do anything else. Throw these old things away. The trash right there. So this is our new Purigen. And then I have some remans in here. Remember, these are regened. Now, I don't know how many times you can regen it because APIs or Sechems instructions don't really say. Basically, it's until the bag deteriorates, the bleach eats the bag the hardest. Some people I've read or seen online say that the bag after 4 or 5 times will eventually just disintegrate and open. You do not want this opening in your tank. So if you think the bag is structurally failed, get rid of it early because you don't want it going through your tank. It's not going to harm the fish, but good luck cleaning it up. It's so fine and whatever, good luck getting it out, right? So you're going to have kind of a hell of a time with that. How many did I take out? I think I took out 3 of this filter, right? I wasn't paying attention. I was talking. Okay, so let's do the Fa Bond though. Open it up. And this is going to be really, really dusty. And so what you want to make sure that you do is you want to make sure you rinse it out in the sink entirely. This will get a nice red color. You can see it'll start to come out. Make sure you get this all nice and rinsed off here. Just like that. Now, I think I was going to do 4, but I think I'm going to do 3. So I should specify that the filter that we're doing this for today is for my South American 68-gallon tank, which has some green terrors and tiger severums and a royal pleco in it as of recent. The problem with them is they're disgusting because they're severums and cichlids. They produce a lot of waste. So normally I just overdo this stuff to help pull out as much as I possibly can because they're in a small tank. They need more water. We're working on that. But until the meantime, try to keep it filtered out as best I can. So once again, that's why I have these, because I can over filter and kind of cheat my way out of it because this has such high filtration capacity that I can keep the water as clean as possible, right? And it adds, like I said, because of the height and the width, it's about 2.5 gallons of extra water volume, which for me is really good. Okay, so we're gonna take our chemical basket. That's gonna go in here. That goes on top. Now I should specify that I have my filter set up the way OASE on the box recommends, which is bio, mechanical, and then chemical at the top. So I'm gonna get this filter cleaned up real quick here. Just rinse off the basket. Boop, boop, boop. Now, while I'm cleaning this, there is one recommendation I strongly suggest, and that is get yourself some dedicated towels or whatever, so that way you don't piss your wife off when they get dirty. So I have 4 or 5 dedicated black towels that I use for my fish stuff specifically. They get washed every week, so they are clean, but they never go on a human because they're for fish, right? So just make sure you have that. Like I said, it just keeps it easy. You don't have to worry about is the towel clean or not, or is it fish stuff or not, and then you're washing yourself with it. It's a dedicated towel for your fish, right? So you probably can't see it too well, but this is a little bit tinier of a filter. Now this one, I'm pretty sure at the top is the equivalent of like a polishing pad. It is pretty thick, and I'll show you why I believe that. Give it a few good squeezes like this. And as you can see, maybe you probably can't, but as I squeeze it, more brown stuff is coming out. So this is at the top of the filter. And the fact that there's this much sand coming out of the top of the filter just shows you how much water that pump is trying to push at any given time, right? That sand's gonna find a way through. So, and this same concept, I just rinse this out as best I can. And then if it feels super heavy and I don't feel like it's getting clean, I do replace it. But, okay, so we know we've got our chemical. This is our top polishing pad. Now this basket, I'm sure, if I wanted to put something in it, like a polishing filter, whatever. I probably could. I don't. I use OASE, but let me show you why I think it's thick. So these are the pre-filters, which go on the stick, which I'll pull out here in a second. But these are two different sizes. This one is a 60 ppi, and this one is a 30 ppi. Now, the trick is, it's parts per inch, right? I believe is what that stands for. Anyways, probably doesn't. But the point is that the smaller the number, the bigger the hole, the finer the hole it is. So if we open one of these, now I use for the Sevrums, because like I said, they're dirty and gross, I have to use a bigger filter because they produce so much waste that I was using a smaller one and it was restricting within like 3 days, and I was cleaning it every 3 days. So this is 30 ppi, and you can see it's the same color. So I'm pretty sure this 30 ppi and this one are the same thing. I'm almost like positive they're the same size. They're the same filtration size, right? So I just put this in here, put that basket on like that. This goes in at the very, very top. Now that top basket you cannot get in the wrong position. It won't fit. Once again, OASE tries to make it to where you can kind of do what you want, but at the same time not mess it up. So you can put the baskets below in any order you want, whatever order you want. But that top basket has to go on there as the final piece because it's got handles and some other things that tell you that it's the top basket. Okay, now what do I need to do? We need to start doing the other one. Okay, so this, I'm going to bring it over to the camera here the best I can without making a mess because it's disgusting. This one is the pre-filter. This is what I'm talking about. So this filter sits on the head assembly, not the motor head assembly, but on this priming head assembly like this. And this is the pre-filter, sits inside this tube. Now, here's where my love for OASE kind of falls out for a minute. This is the worst part about this filter. This is the part that I hate. And let me show you why. Number one is that these are fantastic. You can see how dirty they are. Once again, they're from my South American tank, so easy to pull off, whatever. Now, normally I would just, squeeze them out, try to clean them as best as possible. But because it is filter day, we are replacing them because these I cannot clean out. And you can see maybe the size difference, the diameter size difference. They are sucked in super bad, right? Because they've got stuff in them, and as they start to restrict, it pulls that sponge in. So we're going to throw these ones away. Blah. Disgusting. Ooh. And this one takes, the OASE 850 takes 6 of them, 6 sponges. So you can just buy them in a kit. I'll tell you really quick where I buy mine from. I was buying them from a place called Marine and Reef online. They have point system, which is really nice, and I do still buy from them occasionally. Lately, however, I've been able to find some stuff on Amazon, ships and sold from Amazon for a few dollars cheaper. So these get replaced on the regular every 2 or 3 months. I did see somebody say they've never replaced them. Once again, these are the pre-filter. These take most of the brunt of the work. So I'm okay spending, $10 every 3 months to make sure these are as good as possible so that the pump head doesn't fail and, restrict itself, right? But once again, this is the part I don't like. Let me show you why. So this, if you have an older one of these and the different sizes, this was a clear tube originally, and it had very tiny holes in it, so it didn't work very well. OASE redesigned it in the later generation of the filter, and all mine now have been updated to this. I went back and I bought service parts so that I can replace all of them to this, which once again is really nice that OASE does things like that, where they just keep the current thing, going with better parts, right? But let me show you why I don't like it. And it's this part right here. Out of all these OASEs, I've had, 5 or 6 of them. One has been replaced. And part of the reason I keep these in stock, this is the priming head assembly, and it's because this part right here in the head separates, and these tabs no longer hold on to this as they wear down from water or whatever. And so what will happen is you go to pull this up and out of this, and this will collapse into the filter assembly, and it just, you have this. So all of those other pieces that you see sitting here will be sitting here, and you're holding onto this, and it's all in there. And it makes for a huge mess. I don't know why they only have these two little stupid pressure tabs, and all they are is pressure tabs. When you pop it into this assembly, they're supposed to spring back and grab the tube right here. They don't. Like they do for the first little while, they don't after a while. And then on top of it, they use that same design right here that's holding this priming head spring to this bottom like diverter assembly. And there's 3 of these plastic tabs, and they don't hold forever. So after a few months of use, or a few, like 6-7 months of use, this thing starts to fall apart, and you know it's not working because you'll be out there priming the pump for like hours on end and nothing is happening. And then all of a sudden I'll put a new one of these in and it'll work just fine. And it's because the rubber to this piece is no longer holding, so it can't create the negative pressure to go into the damn pump or into the filter. And out of all the things I really like about this filter, that's the one thing, is this priming head assembly sucks. I mean, like I said, I keep these in stock. They're like $24, but it's not worth me sitting there fighting it for hours on end every 7-8 months or however long. I'll just grab a new one, throw it on, and press on, because it's not worth sitting there trying to fight it endlessly. I've torn these things apart. OASE does a really, really good job of, this whole piece is serviceable separately too. You can get the spring, you can get the seal, you can get this little piece, whatever, and then they sell it as a complete assembly. I've tried to fix it as pieces. It's just a pain in the ass. Like, it's not worth it. Just buy the damn assembly for $24 and put it on. Buy the upgraded tube, slap it together like that, and you're done. But OASE really needs to go back and make a better connection from this to this. These 2 pieces right there. And what I would do, if it was me, is I would almost create like a threaded assembly so that this spins on and is actually sealed to this piece. So that way when you pull it up, there's no chance of it falling. Because as you saw when I took this out, there was water in it. And so it's super heavy. So like I said, you pull this up and all of a sudden it'll go like that. And it just creates a freaking mess everywhere. So that's my only, I guess, bitch, but only complaint about the OASEs. Any of the BioMasters are built this way. It doesn't matter the size. And this is just, like, this is the same in all of them. The only difference is the length of this tube. If you get like the 440 or whatever, 450, it's like this tall, the smaller one. And that changes the height of the canister. But they're all the same part and they suck. Like, this is the worst part of the whole thing, is that and this. Fix this and we'll have a talk. So anyways, we're going to put this back on like this. You're going to take your 6 sponges and just shove them down on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you can see they're kind of scrunched up, right? So what I do is I pull them back up, make sure they're kind of spread out, make sure they cover the whole tube like that. And you want them to look pretty, make sure that's pushed on. Take your tube and once again, pop it on like that. Now, so you can even see it doesn't, it's loose. Like, once again, that's just out of all the brilliant parts of OASE, that's just the worst thing they ever did. Okay, now the motor head assembly. This is serviceable as a unit or as individual pieces. So there's a little clip there. Pocket screwdriver, for those of you that are in the auto world, it's the only tool that matters. Pocket screwdrivers do everything. Pull that bad boy up right there. Gonna turn this tab, lift that up. That's the motor head cover. There's your motor. Now, the reason you want to do this, as I go over here and clean this real quick, is the motor head assembly will get gummed up with stuff. And you want to make sure that motor head is functioning as absolute best as it possibly can. So you want to make sure you get all the little gunk out of there in the motor. Just give it a good rinse real quick. Clean it out. And then what I do is I flip it over, and I'll come show you this, is I come over and I clean the inlet and the outlet tube with the brush. And I'll show you why I do that. Motor head assembly over. Ooh, getting water everywhere. My wife is going to kill me later. There's tons of water all over the place. Maybe we should get a towel before I slip and fall. all handled. Okay, so once again, clean your parts off, and you want to clean the motor assembly off because this is where the motor's riding inside this head assembly, right? So the motor is sitting in here, and it's a magnet, permanent magnet motor, right, like that. But this will get gummed up, and that will prevent it from spinning efficiently. So you got to make sure that you just come over, scrub it off real quick. Give it a good rinse. Okay. Now once this is clean, like that, just pops back in there, no problem like that. Take this, put it back on top, close it. This clicks back on, and then this one, clean that off real quick, and then push that back on. Now your motor head assembly is built. Once again, you can get all the pieces separately. However, if your motor fails, you have to buy the whole head assembly. And from my research on OASE's parts website, this, the heater, and the motor head assembly are the most expensive part. I believe this is like 140 bucks, 150 bucks. Like that's the most expensive part. But considering the filter is, $400 or $500, that's not bad if you just have to replace that, which once again is something to look for in a filter because you're going to be running it forever. You are going to have pieces that are going to fail, and you want the easiest way possible. Let's rinse this off real quick. You want the easiest way possible to service it, right? You just want to get a piece. You don't want to have to buy the whole filter. It's kind of like a car. Just give me the piece, don't give me the whole thing, right? Okay, so now we got to put the motor head assembly back on like this. But first, what actually we're going to do is, because I'm doing the filters and because I cleaned it out, what I like to do, Portia, can you grab the injector that's sitting out there? So what I like to do is, because I just cleaned everything out, once again, the whole bacteria argument, oh, he didn't clean it with aquarium water. He's going to kill his fish. They're all going to die. He's so stupid. Whatever. What I do is I take some of my bacteria and I put it directly into the filter to just help the filters grow on their own. Now I will show you some of the chemicals that I currently use. This is C-Chem Stability. This is Prime. This is Fitz Monster 360. Yep. I'll walk over here and grab this real quick. Here we go. This is a little tube here that you can buy on Amazon. I believe they're for horses, but I use it to measure because it's got graduations on it and they're really big and down in that bottle. These are nice. These are like $3 on Amazon. Okay, so chemicals, like I was saying, I usually use C-Chem stuff. Pretty much stick to C-Chem almost entirely anymore. Don't really use a lot of anything else. API is a good backup. We'll do chemicals another day. But this one and Stability, so Stability and Pristine are your main bacteria that you start with. This is the main bacteria. This is the cleaning bacteria that's supposed to remove sludge off the bottom, whatever. Recently, because I have cichlids and they're a lot bigger, I have switched to this to try it, and I think it's hard to quantify if it does a better job, honestly. I don't know. I just think this stuff is a little bit better because it's specifically designed for monster fish. And even though my cichlids are not this big yet, it does help with the waste. I do think it is better. I do think it's effective. It's hard to quantify a lot of fish stuff because it's all on observations, right? It's really hard to scientifically count what the hell's happening. So what I do is I just shake it up. It says use 1 capful for 10 milliliters for every 20 US gallons, blah, blah, blah. Well, I already have an established tank. So I don't even really measure a lot anymore. Just get, healthy graduation of the cylinder, pop that in the filter, put Stability in, and then this stuff is more like the Pristine, where it's supposed to be like the cleaning bacteria that remove the sludge off the bottom. Who knows if that's true or not. Just get a healthy dose, but this stuff is thicker. It is noticeably, dear God, noticeably thicker. And so I wonder if it's actually the same stuff, just concentrated for, monster fish. But I just throw that in the filter to kind of pre-start and kickstart whatever I may have cleaned off. Remember, bacteria is going to die. It's not like it lives forever. It's going to go through cycles and whatever. So you always got to be feeding the bacteria and making sure you have new, healthier colonies coming in. Okay, so now we're going to put this on like this. And once again, OASE does a really good job of making sure you can only put it on one way unless you're stupid like me. I think that's on. Make sure we go like this. Now that's tight. Once again, you have to lift the handle, close like that. Okay, that's all done tight. Cleaned my heater off, and it just goes in the back. Once again, this is where if you have the non-thermo, this port will still be here. In fact, I wonder if I can tip it over. This port right here will still be there on the non-thermo units, and it'll be a plug instead. And on the thermo units, if you want to make it a non-thermo, you can put the plug in. Once again, OASE does a really good job. I'm not trying to diss on them too much. They really do make some of the best filters and canisters and stuff that are on the market right now. Okay, close it down. They have a cord routing place for it as well. Take your pre-filter, shove that in there, turn it like that. Make sure it's on the right side, like that. And it'll sink down in. So once again, OASE does a really nice job. If this is closed to the lock position, that won't go in all the way. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but when I open this, it drops down. Because there's a little blocking ring, so it sits in. And then as you do this, it'll actually pull it in just a little bit further to confirm that it's in. You can feel that seal. Now, here's something that I do. I started a while back. Some of the filters and canisters come with grease, and it's for the O-rings. It's to make sure things slide nice and easy on there, and prevent water from just destroying the O-rings and stuff. So I take a Q-tip and I clean the inlet and the outlet of the very top part of this filter here. See if I can tip it over like this. I just get that nice and clean. And then I bought this O-ring lubricant from Permatex. Now this stuff is the 81101 stuff. This is food grade O-ring sealant and lubricant. Not really sealant, but a lubricant. You can eat this. I would not. In fact, it says it causes skin irritation. Interesting. But you can eat it because I'm pretty sure that it's a non-mineral based whatever. I don't know. I'm not a grease expert. All I know is this is food safe. They use this on food machines at factories that are making food with, assembly lines and stuff. So this stuff is really good. Buy it on Amazon. It's like $6, super cheap. So what I do is I take a clean Q-tip right here, put just a little dab of that on, and then I just work it around that hole right there like that. Get that all nice. You don't need a ton of it. You don't need to see it. Take another little dab of it like that. Put it on the other one on the outlet. And I'm doing this on the inside because when I put the hoses on, the O-rings that seal this thing are going to go right here. Keep the O-rings nice and hydrated. Keep them sealed. And because when you're lifting that up and out, those O-rings are going to try to pull through and become damaged. So that grease right there really helps when I'm doing maintenance. Now I do the pre-filter almost every week in the sense that I take it out, wring it off, clean it off, whatever, make sure it's clean. Because once again, it takes the brunt of the work. So you might as well keep it as clean as possible. But you're going to have to take this off every single time. Up, off, up, off. And so you want those O-rings to really stay hydrated so that they stay functional. Just one of the thoughts that I had. Now I do grease some of the other seals occasionally just to keep them from, damage, drying out, rotting, whatever. But for the most part, that's the main wear point with O-rings is because you're going to go up and down all the time with the inlet and the outlet hoses on that. But yeah, so there is the filter. It's now done. Now, once again, my only complaint, remember what I said, was this priming head assembly. So when this filter is attached and it goes right here, right? When it goes right there, I just touched the grease. I'm so smart. Ooh, make sure it's still good. When you go to prime this, you're going to push this down because there's a gigantic spring in here, and that's going to create the negative pressure in the filter so that the water siphons down from the tank and into the canister to fill up. I've had now several times where I've done this. We go out there to the tanks and we go to hook it up and everything, and I go and I start priming it. If it's functioning, it should honestly take 1 or 2 pushes, if that. I mean, in all honesty, it shouldn't take very long at all. The initial one, when you hook the hoses up, that takes a while because you have a lot of space to take up. But there's water in those hoses right now because they're on a valve. When you turn, it closes the inlet and outlet. So there's water in those. So it's already kind of pre-primed. If this is functioning, it should take 1 or 2 pushes. Shh, shh, and then that thing is filling. And you can hear it. And you'll see air coming out of the outlet. That means it's filling. It's doing its job. I don't know if it's because I just seated the gasket kind of wrong, if I wiggled something, whatever. There was a few times where we spent hours trying to get it to prime because it would not take. And what's weird though is it's not leaking water, but you're trying to find an air leak and you can't see it, right? Because it's got to create negative pressure. So I've taken this out, went and got a new one. That usually fixes it about 90% of the time. One of the other tricks that I've done that works about 5% of the time, take the head off real quick, lift it up, seat it back down, tighten everything. Usually that fixes it. That's, 5%. The other 5%, when I really cannot get it to go, is I cheat. I go over to one of the filters that's already running, that's primed and has been functioning, and I will hook its inlet hoses to this and plug it in and let it suck everything through to try to get it to prime. For whatever reason, that's worked occasionally too. But like I said, it's usually this damn priming head assembly. And I know it is because you can feel it when you go like this and it'll feel loose. It won't feel like it's actually creating suction. And I'll pull this up and out and the head is usually separated from the filter part of it. And I try to reattach it, whatever. OASE has warrantied them out a few times for me, which is really great of them. But I just for 20 something bucks, I'll just buy it and put a new one in. It's, whatever. It's just faster that way. So I would recommend keeping these on hand. Extra parts I do have on hand for this filter in case it fails. Priming head, which we obviously talked about. I have one of every O-ring on this in case they fail, which is the priming head, the heater, which has 2, one inside, one out, the motor head assembly itself, and then here's where it does suck though. I have not found the O-rings. There's 2 of them when they go into the tubes right here. There's 2 O-rings that actually seal that, and I have not found the O-rings separate. They come as part of the inlet-outlet head assembly, which sucks because I would like just to buy the O-rings and replace those, but OASE does make you buy the whole inlet-outlet head assembly, which, like I said, it's like 20 bucks, whatever. But it just sucks so I can't get the O-rings. So I have an extra one of those, and it's a good thing to have one of those on hand because that seems to be like I said, the wear part that tends to fail besides this is this inlet-outlet assembly. I should have had one ready to go for the video. But what happens is as you're spinning it, you have 2 plastic pieces that are rotating like this, to close the water so it acts as a valve so you can pull it up and off. We've cracked that before just from, a million times taking it on and off, whatever, stuff happens. Not a big deal, but if you don't have one of those on hand, you're kind of SOL because A, your tank is starting to drain because it's not sealed, and B, it'll never seal on here to get a suction, negative pressure again to start. And then when it pressurizes, it's going to shoot water everywhere. So I have that. I do have an extra heater on hand. Never really thought I would need an extra heater until the day that we did. Thankfully, the OASE 400s have been fine. It was a different manufacturer in a smaller tank where it failed. And so heaters do fail. And unfortunately, that heater failed cold and then failed hot and then failed cold again. So the fish kind of went cold, hot, cold, and kind of boiled themselves. So it was really sad. But now I have sensors on all the tanks continuously monitoring to tell me the temperature in case one of these is to fail. Let's see, what else do we need to talk about on the filter? Probably it. Like I said, this is one of the best filters that I have. I currently have 5 of them. I have 2 on a 150, 1 on a 68, and then 1 on each 75. The only other filter brand that we do have in the house is Marineland. That Marineland was bought as a backup a while ago when something failed. The Marineland's fine. It's just not big enough. It does pump harder. It's got a bigger motor head, so that is nice. But I use it as kind of like a polishing and like a backup in case this ever fails to move water. But these I've had the longest. We've had these now the whole hobby, so 3 years. The oldest one's probably 3-ish years old, and it's still going strong. It's the one actually in there that are now for the peacocks. Yep, and that one's fine. The only ones I will say to avoid while we're talking about filters is Fluval. And the reason why is that every Fluval filter we had failed. It did not matter the size. We bought the 107 all the way up to the 407 or whatever their nomenclature is called. But we bought every single size. And the Fluvals only use 2 clamps. They don't use 4. It uses 2. And on the smaller one, it seemed to be okay. But on the bigger one, it literally started pushing out the sides and water was puking. And I mean, the filter would make it like 2 days and then we'd come home to water on the ground. In fact, we went on our last vacation. We went on the plane an hour before I got a phone call from my mother saying, hey, there's water all over the ground. Half the tank is on the ground because the Fluval failed. And so those smaller canister filters from Fluval, it kind of turned me off to the brand entirely. Like, they're not really serviceable. They aren't really stoutly built. You know, they're kind of the Petco, PetSmart brands for probably a reason. Petco was nice enough to warranty them out. PetSmart was too, every time they leaked. But after like the 5th one and reading online that everybody else had the same problems, I was like, this is BS. Like, I'm not going to come home to thousands of dollars of dead fish and ruin floors because the filter failed, right? And so this is nice because it does use the 4. And we've never had this leak on accident. Like, it never did it itself. We did have it one time where it failed, but it was because I didn't have it sealed all the way. I think I missed a clamp or something. And then, yeah, it did start puking because it came out no shit there. But it was my fault. It was not the filter's fault. But these OASEs are really nice. This once again, I avoid the Fluvals. I know a lot of guys like FX6, FX4, whatever their numbers are. They're fine, whatever. I've never used one. I just was turned so off to Fluval because of how bad their initial product was that I don't use them. So I would, personal recommendation, avoid them. Now, there is 2 other tricks with OASE. Number 1 is that you can get 3 tricks, I guess. Number 1, you can get these filters on sale from Petco and PetSmart. Occasionally, they will go on sale. I believe this one sitting in front of me, I picked up for like $189. Which this is normally like a $500 filter. It was around Christmas time. They do go on unannounced sales. And so you can pick these up for under $200 on a sale. Or if you stack coupons from Petco and stuff, I've done that. And you can get these for an extremely decent price. That's trick number 1. Trick number 2 is the reason a lot of people don't like the OASE stuff. And one of their like review points was that, oh, you can't buy the stuff locally. That's true. I have yet to see any OASE part at Petco, PetSmart, a fish store, whatever. Like I said, I used to buy, and I'll put links at the bottom. Marine and Reef is where I used to get a lot of direct from OASE. And now Amazon, because Amazon does have direct ships and sold from Amazon, some OASE stuff. Is it okay? Still good? So now I usually buy from Marine and Reef or Amazon Direct, just whatever I go with that day. Marine and Reef, shout out to them. They have really good customer service. I've called them a few times. Local company down in Arizona, mom and pop kind of thing is what I understand. And they're fantastic. They really are a good company. I like buying from them. So OASE stuff is difficult to get because it's all online. So you kind of have to prepare in advance. So like today, because we're doing filter day, I didn't have enough of these. Shame on me. I didn't order ahead of time. So if I need more of these, I'll have to go get them from Amazon or whatever. That's why if there's a failure, you kind of want to have parts as a backup, because you're not going to be able to go down to PetSmart and get them from PetSmart or Petco. You have to order them. And trust me, at midnight, when there's water on the ground and you're trying to figure out what to do and how to prevent, wood damage and killing thousands of dollars in fish, that's why I have some of the, parts. In fact, I've gotten to a point where I'm almost debating, do I just have a secondary filter sitting in the back, like another one of these, just ready to go in case something, huge failure, and I can just throw it on immediately, right? Probably will do that in the future. Probably should do that. So yeah, so the second part is that the parts and the filters and whatever are not readily available. However, from 3-4 years ago when I started to now, almost everything is available much quicker. Amazon same day delivery, Marine and Reef, a bulk reef supply, whoever, they have a lot more of their stuff. So OASE's done a really good job at that. And then the third thing with the OASE is that you will and won't pay for it, meaning that this is, a more expensive filter. I think, like I said, this one normally retails for like 500 something. I think it was like 550, but you can pick it up for deals. These originally were like 20 something dollars a pack. Now they're down to like 10. So certain things you will pay for and others you won't. It is not one of the cheaper filters, but that's a good thing because you're investing in your fish. You don't want to damage your house. This is going to be running 24/7. You don't want something to fail. And like I said, we came home from dinner and, oh shit, there's probably 40 gallons of water plus on the ground. You don't want that to happen. You want peace of mind. These filters have really been phenomenal. Once again, that's why I have 5 of them. I don't run anything else as of right now. So in the future, if I was to switch, I would like a sump system. And only reason I want a sump over this is capacity. I would like an extra, however many number of gallons on the bottom of the tank to help the fish. But these are phenomenal canisters. They're one of the biggest ones. They have the most capacity. The only question I should reach out to OASE and ask them is it's the same conversation as Purigen or even like this, like whatever, like all these things tell you, they're rated for X number of gallons. This says it's rated for 225 gallons. What the hell does that mean? Is that the number of fish? Is that the type of fish? Like what happens if you have one giant ass fish in there that, thinks he's king dick of the water around here and he, just shits himself constantly in the tank? Is that going to work? Or like, what about turtles? Turtles are disgusting. So you can have like a turtle tank. I think turtles are great. They're just gross because they produce a lot of waste. So what if your turtle tank's only 60 gallons? Is this enough? Or what if your turtle tank's 500 gallons? Is it like once again, they rate them in gallons, and I don't understand what that means because from my experience with fish, everything is dependent upon the load and what the tank is doing. For example, if you have, let's say 10 barbs, they're probably going to produce less waste than 4 gigantic sevrums, right? And so we could argue over gallon size, but like the bio load that those are going to be producing, and what if you have plants in there and stuff, right? Like, I don't know. I need to reach out to OASE and maybe CChem and ask them, what does 100 gallons mean? Because I think it means something different. So really the trick of it is knowing your tank, understanding your fish, and making sure that you're monitoring water all the time. And I can tell with this one when they're starting to fill up because I can see the water, I can hear it, I can hear the pump whining, I can, see the flow coming out of the outlet tube. And it just, I'm just that in tune with my tanks. I have a buddy who also keeps fish, and he probably changes his filters never, ever. I don't think he's done it at all. And somehow he's still kept fish alive. So, to each their own, right? But I'm pretty religious about a standard maintenance schedule on these things. Who knows if that's the best way to do it? We're all kind of guessing. But once again, for the filter itself, capacity-wise, operation-wise, and my biggest thing is serviceability. How many parts can I get for this? The OASEs really are the best one. It was a lot of research to try to find these. But now they're, like I said, it's the only thing I ran. I've ran smaller ones for family members. Just cannot say enough good things about this filter because we have had 0 water leaks, and I think that's a huge benefit for a filter. So anyways, one other quick fact here on the back, it does say that it is 400 gallons per hour. I would argue, depending on your head height, if that's true or not, mostly because mine are probably about 10 feet of hose, and it's definitely not a huge output. like it's good, but it's not hugely pressurized. And they do claim that the pump head itself is 25 watts. So it's a fairly small wattage motor actually compared to some of the other ones. I know there were some other pumps I looked at that were like 45 watts or whatever what they're running. So this is really nice power consumption wise, because if you're limited on amperage out of your outlet, you know, really nice. Like I said, OASE done a really good job thinking through how much is really going to be used. I just think this is one of the nicer filters that you can get. Yeah. So anyways, if you like what you see, go ahead, click like and subscribe down there. Leave some comments. Let us know what you like. And we'll be back with more episodes. Thanks.